Hello and welcome to the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. This is the weekly podcast for all your tillage news and advice. In this episode, I'll be discussing the harvest progress in Cork with Elaine Clifford from Teagasc. But first I spoke to Phelim McDonald in Carlow. I first asked Phelim how much progress is made to date.
Harvest started there about, 2 weeks ago or so. Slow enough start, I suppose, and it's picked up an awful lot since Saturday last, and there was a lot of work done Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. So it's difficult to know, I suppose. Overall, probably 1 out of 3 fields might be harvested at this stage. So it's what I put down as good progress. The combines are working away fine. There's nothing in the way of lodging or brackling at this stage. No particular problems in combining, just waiting on the weather. So it's a good progress, but of course we have to bear in mind that plantings are down, so it's much easier to get to that sort of level of harvest at this stage.
Okay, and I suppose I've been hearing anecdotally that some of the yields are probably disappointing, might be the best way to put it, up around this part of the country, which might, I suppose, in two senses. One, it helps combines get through a bit faster, but obviously very disappointing for farmers involved. What are the yields like out there?
Yeah, the yields are disappointing is one word, but also variable. So it's difficult to give an average, and the average would hide a lot. So I'll give you the range that I've come across so far from on winter barley from 2.2 tonnes per acre up to the 4 tonnes per acre. So 4 tonnes would be sort of more or less on target. Some people would have their eye on a bit more, but the 2.2 would be definitely pretty poor. And I suppose there's a couple of reasons for it, or a couple of factors behind it. One would be soil type. In Carlow, it wouldn't have the heaviest soils. And the second would be, of course, the weather, the drought that we had. But there's also then certain fields that would be maybe closer to lay, would have got maybe dressings of organic manures, and they would have done better. That's what I'm seeing anyway. They'd have done better. So overall, I know we're not halfway through it yet, but the yields are going to be well back. I suppose you could say certainly 20%, possibly more. And on the lighter soils, that will really manifest itself. And on the heavier soils, they might come close to target.
And for those heavier soils, were they sown that little bit earlier, or are we in Carlow the same as a lot of the other parts of the country? Everything was sown probably 3 weeks later than you might have liked.
Yeah, I'd say a little later than we might have liked. Probably not 3 weeks. But we were better here in Carlow than elsewhere in the country. So it would be a combination of factors, but later sown, I think people sowed at a reasonable time late on in October, got them in good conditions and stopped then when conditions declined. So it's the crops really that went in, I think, into more moisture retentive soils for whatever reason, whether it had been in a number of years, we'll say in a break crop, a cover crop, or got manure dressings or municipal waste, that type of thing. They just seem to fare that little better when the dry weather came in. But that's what we're seeing. I know one farmer there who had the 2.2 tonnes that I mentioned of cassia at one side of the road, and below it on a heavier field at the other side of the road, same variety, same sowing date, same everything. He got what was it? It was just over the 3 tonnes, I think 3.1 or 2 tonnes. So quite a significant difference there, and the heavier soil, I think, came into play quite a lot.
Okay. It's been a little bit mixed out there, just in terms of trying to get the harvest done. Although I have seen a number of combines with an awful lot of dust coming out of them. What's the moisture's like coming off, and you might have a comment about the quality of grain this year?
Quality of grain, I think, is going to be back, certainly in these early crops. The quality, the kpH that we're getting is around 62 to 65. I haven't come across over 65 yet. And included in those low kpHs would be the cassias. So quality, not great. The other question we're asking there was moisture. Moisture is good. Some crops were brought in there at 15%, others at 16, 17%. I think the highest I came across was 18.5. So moistures are fine. The crops are ripe, and the quality is not great. Maybe the grain fill, I would imagine, has suffered. Straw was short, and I don't think that the KPHs are going to rise an awful lot. You'd expect that they would maybe, but I'm not sure that they will. Certainly wouldn't like to say it. Should be back to me then, looking for an explanation.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the straw, is the volumes mirroring the level of grain, as in they're a good bit lower than normal?
I put it this way, Michael, they're more than mirroring it. So where grain yields are back maybe 20-25%, straw yields can be back 50%. So bales per acre would be 5, 6, 7 bales per acre, or people would be expecting 10 or more.
Okay, that's a long ways down. I suppose we had predicted that. I suppose that the crops were looking a bit short. And just in terms of, you mentioned it's obviously not all the winter barley is not cut yet, but is the good stuff still to come, or is it just a little bit more of the same, do you think?
I would be hoping for a little improvement, but I wouldn't be banking on it. The crops did definitely suffer there a couple of times during the year, and tillers did die off, there's no doubt about it. That became quite obvious when the flagleaf snest, and we could see not only the heads, and the heads were scarce enough. There was a lot of cases there was only maybe 600 heads, where you'd be looking for 1,000. So a little bit of compensation there maybe, and maybe the later ones might come on a little bit. I hope they do, but no guarantees, I don't think, this year.
Okay, and just maybe finally, just in terms of the other crops out there, is there anything else kind of ripe and kind of ready to go, and farmers only kind of waiting on the weather, or what's the view?
Yeah, well, oilseed rape, there's been 1 or 2 crops harvested. Didn't really hear reports of them. I wouldn't expect it to be anything much to write home about. Certainly not a disaster, but other than that, there's nothing cut yet in lines of winter wheat or spring barley. They're a little while away yet. The winter wheat is looking reasonably good, better than the winter barley. Following on from that, then winter oats, spring wheat, they'll come in later on, and the spring oats, I have to say, look quite good, other than some crops very, very low, just up to your calf on sandy soils. But other than that, winter oats looks good in winter. Spring barley looks particularly poor and very variable. The fields look like patchwork quilts with yellow and green, where tillers were stunted and poor, and I think they came on late, so that's going to cause a little bit of problems there.
Okay, Phelim, look, thanks very much for dialing in. I know we're up the country today, but I really appreciate it.
Okay, Michael, thanks.
And then we're going to head down to Cork, and we'll have a chat to Elaine Clifford, the Teagasc advisor down there, to see what way the harvest is progressing there. Elaine, what way is the harvest there? Is there much completed so far, or where is it?
Yeah, so we're just kicking off with the harvest really down here this week now, Michael. I suppose maybe it started kind of middle to end of last week, the 15th, 16th of July. A small number of farmers started with maybe early ripening varieties. It's kind of mixed across the county. There's maybe 10%, talking to my colleague Michael McCarthy, anything west of the city, maybe 10% of barley harvested. Whereas in my area then, which would be east of the city, might be a bit more, 15 to 20% harvested to date. So there's maybe vast majority of barley was only just coming ripe now this week, and a lot of more, maybe the later varieties, they just need a couple of more good days really. A lot of it might be still at 24% moisture really.
Through the year, Elaine, we've been looking at, I suppose, some of the best crops around the country down in Cork, and I suppose that probably is reflected in the slightly later harvest than up here in Cork. For those that are cut, what are the yields like?
Yeah, so I suppose we were a bit luckier with the weather down here, and we got rain at kind of critical timings for the crops. So the yields are slightly better than the rest of the country maybe, but it appears that grain fill was really good, and they're fermenting from 3.7 to kind of up to 4.3 tonne down here. No varieties majorly standing out yet, but there's still a good bit to cut.
Okay, and is the best of it still to come, even though there's nothing wrong with 3.7 to 4.3 tons. That's pretty good. Is there still better crops out there, I presume, still to be harvested?
It's mixed, I suppose. Like there's a good few 6 rows cut now. We'll say the earlier ones like Pixel, all doing nearly above 4 ton. So I think this year is kind of different down here. The good crops are being cut nearly first, and maybe holding off on the poorer crops for a couple of days.
So with that, then what's the moistures like of the grain that's cut, and is there any quality issues, or is the quality pretty good?
Yeah, quality is pretty good. Just going back to the moistures, it's probably around 15% the last couple of days, just a range of 15 to 19, I suppose. Quality is very good. So we're averaging bushel maybe 67 with a range of anything from 66. I've even heard reports of up to 70 in some cases. So farmers are very happy with the way that it's busheling.
Okay, geez, all sounds rosy down in Cork. So the straw volumes must be pretty good as well.
No, actually, straw. A lot of lads are kind of disappointed with straw. Volume is definitely back this year anyway. I suppose a lot of maybe went into grain fill, but some crops are very uneven with maybe late tillers coming. And straw is still quite green, even though the grain is ripe. So I've heard a few people kind of saying it's a bit difficult to combine the crop. There's very little straw bale, so it's kind of hard to say how much it is back. But definitely thinner on the ground, I think.
Okay, well that's something that I suppose might be a theme all the way through the harvest, and hopefully that might make up for some of the lost grain, I suppose, in the rest of the country. Straw prices maybe might increase on the back of that. I suppose because it's winter barley isn't, I suppose it's only really starting. Are farmers looking anyway past that at all? Is there any of the other crops kind of stacking up behind the winter barley in terms of harvest?
I'd say nothing in the next 2 weeks anyway. Winter oats is still fairly green, maybe 10 days to 2 weeks before that'll be coming in. There are some farmers only desiccating winter oilseed rape the last couple of days, so I'd say that'll be at least 2 weeks off as well. But growers down here will definitely be busy around the second week of August, I'd say, with winter wheat and spring barley coming in all in the one.
Elaine, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for that update. It's good to get a view from Cork as well as up a little bit further north. So look, we might touch base with you again maybe later on in the harvest just to see how it's going. Thanks again, Elaine.
No bother. Thanks, Michael.
That's it for the Tillage Edge this week, and my thanks to Elaine and Phelim for joining me on the podcast. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more farming information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.